Hello everyone. Morning. Hope everyone's well. Let me know if the audio and the video is coming through fine. It seems okay on my end. Some regular faces as usual. Quaz, Donna, Rusty, Martial Arts, Ted, Vero. I'm getting over a head cold. If you notice my voice is a bit deeper than usual. But yeah, hope everyone's fine. As always, mainly discussing the recent video shown here. I can never do this opposite thing right. That how can you not? As in, I was discussing how can you not know what green flags are? And I know sometimes we might joke about it. It's so hard to find people who don't lie, who keep their word, and so on and so forth. But it's sort of sometimes it's a bit sort of eye rolling where everyone acts coy, like, "Wow, there's no point. There's no such thing as green flags. They're all going to leave you." And what it speaks to me is that really people have kind of given up on recognizing a good person in front of you, whether they're whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it's friendship or trusting your own judgment that you can judge correctly, whether it's a place you should work, how you're treated, the right thing to do, all those sort of things. But if it's always, oh, there's no point because there's always a possibility of failure, there's always a possibility of betrayal, I just don't think that's a really good way to live life. And I know nothing's guaranteed, and I know the best things can always end, but not even to begin, or not to trust your own judgment because it could end. To me, it's I don't know. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, guys. I didn't do a shout out on the community tab. I should have done that a few days ago, but that's when I sort of got my head cold and I've been resting the last few days. I'm on my way out of it now anyway. But I did have a few comments under the video itself. So if you guys want to ask me a comment during this live stream, on the right there, make sure you add a whole bunch of emojis. No, I don't have the C word. Okay. Glenn R commented under the video, how can you not know? He said, the first green flag is physical attraction. That's the easy one. Everyone acknowledges that green flag, but then apparently people go, I don't know any green flags. That's the very basic first one. But then conscious ones after that, people want to play dumb as though there aren't any. John C said, for me, the best green flag is respect. That's actually a really big one. When the other person respects you. It's really nice when you see that in a partner, where they listen to you, where they acknowledge your needs and things like that. I know it's rare, but respect is a very, very big green flag. Neil said, as I've mentioned before, my green flags are kind, caring, and compassionate. My last long-term relationship of 2 years was a toxic mess. I thought that I had those green flags, but I was deceived by her and by myself. But regardless, if she had invested 10 seconds, she could have secured the rest of her life. I walked out. If all she had to do was say, this relationship is important to me, what do I have to do to make it work? It's that simple. Despite all the toxins, that line would have been my ultimate green flag. Yeah, I walked out on my last one as well, not because I didn't try, because as you said, all I had to do was show some willingness to talk and fix things. I remember trying to talk and resolve things, and it was just no, no, no. It was always her way, and the only way she would speak is her way, and wouldn't acknowledge my point of view, wouldn't acknowledge what my frustrations were. And in the end, I had to walk away because it was basically just her way. It was her relationship, her voice, her vocabulary, all that sort of stuff. I didn't exist unless I said yes to her script. And so in that respect, I don't agree with just walking away. She should have, unless she said, she invested 10 seconds in there. It's what led up to it. That's a lot of stuff that guys don't want to admit. It's not just the breakup, it's everything that led up to it. I'm drinking tea, in case any of you are curious. Boffin left a message. He said, there are at least two dimensions to romantic relationships. The sexual aspect is instinctual and simple. It's the dealing with the rest of the person aspect that requires much thought and effort. There are a few universal red flags and green flags. In general, it is a mixed bag for each man. If you're not willing to invest the time it takes to determine your personal selection criteria, both negative and positive, you're better off planting a white flag of surrender and moving on to other areas of your life. Yep. And I have no problem with guys who don't, who've put up the white flag, who are done with relationships and women, and that's fine. But there's far too many that, like, I talk about relationships and women and things like that, but I'm open to saying that I'm still open, that, I'm looking for that specific type of person. So I haven't put up the white flag. Whereas I've heard a lot of guys saying, like, yeah, I don't need women, I don't want women, I'm fine on my own, I never want another woman. Yet there's this intense interest to continually and sort of vociferously talk about women as though they just broke up yesterday. And I know that they may have had really horrific breakups, even divorces and not seeing their kids and things like that. And I know that's kind of a sore spot. But there's some of them that haven't had any of that, and they're very, very frustrated. And it makes me think you cannot be this frustrated if you have truly just left women behind. And a lot of the comments under my videos, you'll get drive-by comments from mainly women saying, "Oh, human, if you're truly over women, or if you're truly like," they obviously don't follow my channel much, but they like to infer something so they can try and shame me. But they'll say, "You obviously care about women." I've never said that I don't. I've never said that I wasn't ever willing to be in a long-term committed relationship. I speak out against the stuff I don't think works, that I don't agree with, that I don't think works for me. Ahmed Ghost says a red flag is she would ban you from watching Human. Yeah, remember guys, if you want to ask a question, add a whole bunch of emojis right before your comment and end it with a question mark. So, yeah, the thing with the last video was I've done a couple. Like, basically the first one was, I think it's constructive for guys that we start being honest about what went wrong, where we were at fault, as well as where they were at fault. But I mean, we're always suspicious when we hear women saying, "Oh, they were perfect," and the guy was an a-hole, and every guy they went out with was an a-hole. Whereas we respect and trust someone more when they can kind of reflect and say, yeah, I wasn't the best, but they did this wrong. So at least there's a little bit of accountability. I think for us, and it's not for women's sake, it's for our sake, that we're kind of honest so that when we go forward, if we decide to go on dates and if we decide to want a relationship, that we can go there with some sort of perspective on ourselves rather than we're perfect. And so we go in there not knowing how to stand up for what we think is right. So we don't go in there with our values. We go there with the same operating system that we had when we were 18 years old, 20 years old, 25 years old, 27 years old. So it doesn't, with all that experience and hopefully with all that introspection should come sort of more personal accountability. Again, not for her. It doesn't matter about her. It's for you. So if you decide to enter into a relationship, it's consciously and with your experience and you speaking up when you might see a red flag and you acknowledge when you do see a green flag. You really know why you like her. You can observe things. She can say things to you like, yeah, I'm too nice, or I've got this and that character trait. But then you observe it, which shows you it's not just her trying to market herself to get you, but she actually has those qualities. So you observe, you talk. Over time, you determine whether or not this person's for you. What are her green flags? What are her red flags? And the video last week, where I started the conversation with I'm tired of red flags, is for us to actually start to talk about what we want. So the green flags are what we want, what we appreciate, what's compatible with us. Those will start to eliminate the red flags, because if all we do is focus on the negative, I don't want that, that's dangerous, that's dangerous, that's dangerous, I've noticed a lot of the male self-help online, it's kind of, that's the titillating stuff, that's the tabloid stuff, that's the stuff that gets you excited, right? And so I'd hate for guys to become like women that just go out for drama. We get so used to the tabloid red flags of women that if you go on that many guys might be conditioning themselves that when they go on a date and the girl's just normal or she has green flags, she's just not exciting because she's not swimming in that pool of red flags that guys are so enamored by. Like, if you're always watching Fresh and Fit and a lot of those clickbaity tabloid-styled male self-help stuff, then other women are kind of just banal by comparison because you haven't looked for green flags in terms of what you want, and then you can't see them. All you do is you've got a checklist, a mental checklist of red flags. It's kind of like, does she have it? Does she have this? Oh, she's got it. Does she have that negative trait? So you're not actually paying attention to good qualities. It's all this, you're ready with the red marker to do an X next to one of her check boxes that's a negative, So it's kind of like, the girl power chicks, how they always got the magnifying glass looking for the negative. And if you always have that, if you're always out looking for the negative, you'll find it. And so I don't want us guys to always be having that negative magnifying glass out. Have the positive one out as well. It's kind of that dance between both, a rational dance between, because some of your negative red flags could just be scars from your ex that's still affecting you. But it may actually not be a deal breaker. It may be a character trait or something that reminds you of your ex, but it wasn't really a character trait or something that caused you to break up. So a lot of this introspection really helps us to determine whether it's a genuine red flag. And if it is, if you think it is, voice it. I always encourage guys to learn how to speak and ask questions. Adam asks, do you think with strong boundaries you can train a narcissistic woman to behave with consideration towards you? Unlikely from what I've read and seen. Don't try and be a narcissist therapist. Because remember, narcissists want supply. And the more you try, set strong boundaries for yourself, but be very weary of them acting in a certain way to break down your boundaries or get within them. So I'd be very careful, and don't just label someone a narcissist because they just have certain negative traits. But certainly if you determine she is, make sure, you have very strong boundaries and you're very aware when they keep encroaching on them. Vero says, I see red flags all over the golf course. Should I run? Realistic Delinquent says, what are your demographics? Do you ever feel that you're preaching to the choir? In some ways, but as I said, a lot of times I'm just espousing, like this is like a video journal for me, and or talking to a younger version of myself, or guys that are like-minded. I figure if I'm interested in these topics, there's bound to be someone else who is. But also, I would have appreciated this kind of conversation 15 years ago because I really had no mentors in relation to these topics. So yeah, in some ways, I'm preaching to the choir, but it's also preaching to myself as well, because it's like exercise. You can't just know this stuff and then go, all right, I've read it, I know it, and you throw it away. It's like going to the gym. It's stuff that always props up so you need to keep that muscle exercised and strong, not neurotically, but in a very calm kind of healthy way, like you would exercise. Keep yourself mentally fit with this stuff if you are dating and if you're not going to be taken advantage of. Remember, guys, if you want to ask a question, a couple emojis before your question, so I know they're a question. Yeah, Ted1775 is a red flag for me is when I'm reaching for my wallet too much. Yep, I've been there. I remember years ago I went on a few dates with the girl. I was set up by a friend. She was nice enough. And we didn't, though, get along straight away. But I just thought, we'll give it a few dates. She was a nice person, but we just didn't fit. I remember the first date. She just stood by the door, waited for me to pay. I was like, okay, fine. The next time, when I said, let's go, let's pay and go, she goes, I'm just going to the bathroom. And so I walked to the counter, and then she walked back and waited at the door again. And then the third time I just went out for a coffee with her during lunch, and it was the same kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know if she was used to it, but you have to be aware of these things. If you feel awkward, and look, I wasn't officially dating her. Like, I went on a couple of dates and I didn't want to have this awkward conversation. But for me, it's, if you don't want to be fair, or at least offer to pay, if you expect, and this is the thing, she wanted to sort of go out and go for a dinner and go for a coffee. Yeah, if you want to go out all the time, because I think I suggested once, let's just go for a walk. Some of my favorite dates have been, let's just meet somewhere and go for a walk in a park, or go for a walk along the beach or something. Because the main point for me is to talk to the person and get to know them. And when you're at a restaurant with food, there's a lot of distractions. There's the procedure of ordering food and all that kind of stuff. Whereas when you're just on your own walking, there's nothing except you and the other person, and like you're in your own little bubble talking. So for me, the best dates have always been just a walk somewhere. Yep, reaching for your wallet too much is a red flag, yeah. Some of my relatives would disagree. They believe that the man should always pay. I always have this disagreement. We can't see eye to eye, but that's the way they are. And again, like I say, it's not so much that I have a problem with paying. I have a problem with the girl pretending to want to pay. So don't say, oh, do you want me to chip in, or do you want me to pay, or whatever. Don't pretend to bring your purse out when you don't mean it, because that from the outset shows me you're lying. So if you don't want to pay, do what that date did with me. We weren't getting along anyway, so it was fine for me to kind of not go any further with her. But that was just something that sort of I felt like she just expected me to pay all the time. She never offered, fine. She was being honest, but we didn't have anything in common anyway. My only problem with women, with the male-female thing, paying or not paying, is that don't lie and pretend to bring out your purse. Don't do a fake gesture. And I've always had this debate with people in my life, and they're saying, well, it's just a girl does it because it's polite, but if a man takes her up on it, it doesn't show good character. I go, it doesn't show good character to lie. So that's my problem with it. If I want to pay, I'll pay. But don't pretend to want to pay. Ted1775, I see green flags, the sixth sense. I was going to use something like that for the title of this stream. Do you see green flags? And so the last video, how can you not know what your green flags are? To me, it suggests that some people might not even care. It's almost like they might have given up. It's too hard. It's too dangerous. Because before all of this stuff, before social media and everything, you had to go up and talk to a girl. But I don't think, because I remember pre-social media, there wasn't this kind of binary, there's no point. There's kind of like you have to go out there searching, talking, gaining the courage to talk to someone, finding out who matches you, if you can get along, whether you respect each other. But now it's like everyone's made up their mind before they even meet. They've made up the mind of their relationship and the unattainability of it before they even get to talk to a person. So, Mike R says, but human, women can never do no wrong. That's a double negative. So are you saying that... Are you saying that women can do wrong? Ricky says, I remembered I quit dating until I made something of myself. Gym money looks. After 4 years, I still don't think I have enough value to compete. When do you know if you're good enough? When you have to stop doubting yourself that way, I'd say. This is the thing, when we never feel like we're good enough, but objectively, we know our friends and family appreciate us. Today, I think men's frustration is, why do the expectations of women today seem astronomical compared to friends and family and anyone else? Work, colleagues, bosses, anyone. Like, standards are kind of normal, but women want a superhero. And then you've got to continue to keep providing more. You have to become a superhero. While you look on the other side, what do women provide? They're not providing a superhero themselves. They just show up. AJ Taylor says, a big green flag is if she offers to pay for something while you took her out. I'll buy the snacks since you bought the tickets is a green flag. Yep. Things like that. I know sometimes, you buy dinner, she goes, I'll get the coffees, she's paying less, but at least she's contributing something. And again, it's your standard. Some guys won't pay at all. That's your deal. But I think it's important to know what your green flags are and basically what your standards are. Pooping while standing says, Schrodinger's, I can't say the word, girl power. Schrodinger had some very insightful things to say about women. He said, a woman is simultaneously a victim and empowered until something happens. Then she chooses which state benefits her most. This tickle. It's annoying. I wish I'd just get a full-blown cold rather than this just annoying tickle and congestion. Actually, no. I take that back. It's horrible. Thanks for the super chat donation, AJ Taylor, by the way, with your question, as appreciated. You got a little clapper, so I'm assuming you're into movies and films. Yeah, so that's all I'm saying. The red flags are essential. Know what you don't want to do anymore. Know where you've been burnt. Know what's unfair. Know all that stuff. Know as in K-N-O-W. And you say no to that, N-O. But you also need to know what you want now in relation to it. There's the male self-help online with relation to dating, the tabloid stuff, is all the gratuitous no stuff. Look how dumb they are. It's all apophatic, but there's no cataphatic learning and analysis of, all right, what do I want? Yeah, there's this whole sea of stuff we know is bad. We should keep our eye open for. If there's correlation between this and that, then that's a red flag. What are green flags, though? You cannot just pick someone on what they're not. What are they? And that's another way of saying, who are you? What do you want? Who are you? Things like that. Remember, guys, you want to ask a question, put a whole bunch of emojis beforehand. I probably won't do a long stream today because I probably should rest my voice. It's already tickling me more than it did at the start. Yeah, August Lyon says, women are always looking for the slightest flaw to write a guy off. It's maddening. I think it's kind of women overcompensating. They overcompensate so they never have to settle. So they don't have to be afraid of picking the wrong one. So they're always out there open for the perfect guy, which will never happen because no one's perfect. It's there's too many cases, especially of women, that turned men down in their 20s. Let nice guys go, guys who wanted to marry them, things like that. There's a lot of those. There's much more women who say that than guys. There's much less guys that say, oh, well, this girl wanted to do this. She was a perfect one, and I just let her go like an idiot. There's not many guys that say that, but there are more women that say that. Vitlaus says the mob as a whole doesn't know what it wants. Individual women adjust accordingly. Yeah, women tend to listen much more to the consensus, to fashion, to the, to global think more than guys. And I think that's understandable because if a guy isn't individually responsible, then he can end up homeless. So he has to question. He can't just listen to the marketing out there that says, do this. He will, but with a grain of salt. He'll test, he'll get burnt, and he'll think twice again. Look at marriage and things now. Everyone says, oh, get married, you just picked the wrong girl. But he's like, yeah, but I've picked the wrong girl a few times. I need to think about this. Oh, no, just going blindly. It was just luck. Relationships are just luck. You just picked the odd, trashy woman. It's like, what? So did the 80% of men as well out there pick the same? It's the stats actually suggest this isn't actually luck. This is a trend. And so guys who are looking for the compatible good person need to be very, very mindful, which is why I say the green flags are very, very important. So yeah, I'm not going to do this. This stream's not going to be very long today, guys. It's a long weekend here in Melbourne. I don't know if it is for the rest of Australia. It would be, wouldn't it? Easter Monday. So it'd be the same around the world. Vincent says, I know for a fact many men and women that do not learn from mistakes. Yep. Yeah. It does take a lot of humility and just kind of letting go to go, yeah, really look at, were your exes as bad as you say they were? Like, do you talk about them in such a bad way to sort of empower yourself, like a lot of women do about their exes? Or was she, did you initially get with her because she had pretty good qualities, or so you thought? Being very realistic about it and analyzing not just her, but you, where it went wrong. Did she stop trying, or did you both? Did you stop trying too? They're all important questions. So going forward, you got better chances rather than believing you're perfect and they're all bad. And then it increases your chances of being heartbroken again. Whereas when you reflect honestly, or as honestly as you can, realize where, you did wrong, where she did wrong, then going forward, you can recognize both of those things. And the likelihood of that happening again in the same way is a lot lower. Yeah, August Line says, please rest your voice, human. Take it easy, man. Yeah. So any final questions, guys? And then I'll wrap it up because I don't think my voice can actually do it anymore. But I thought I would show up today because on my last video, before when I made my last video, it was, when did I film it? I filmed it around the weekend, and I finished it off on Monday, I think. I'm not sure. But it was just before I started to sort of feel a bit of a head cold. And so I said at the end of the video, I said, I'll see you, let's discuss this at the live stream. And so I made a commitment. I showed up, guys, because I said I would, but I can't stay long because I need to rest. Yeah, great comments as well. Keep the comments coming under the comment section, guys. I really like the community of people we have under there, giving respectful, mature responses and experience, and looking at things from different sides and being level level-handed about things and not just, having that binary, they're good, they're bad, we're good sort of approach. Having a balanced and humble point of view where, yeah, like, this is bad behavior, and yeah, I've acted this way too, so have they. This is the kind of person who's a virtuous person, this person isn't. Or, what works for you, what might be a deal breaker for you, what might be a red flag for you, might just be mildly sort of eye-raising to me, but it's not really a big deal. Like I said, in my younger days, smoking was a massive red flag. And then later in my life, it wasn't a red flag at all. Certainly the things that became red flags as I got older were more character traits. Things like empathy, temper, patience, temperance, kindness, sympathy, things like that. Realistic Delinquent says, sorry to pester, but I feel my question was misunderstood. What do you know your audience to be? Age, gender, etc. Are topics affected by the statistics you know of your viewers? Not quite sure. I think I have a good mix, but I think it's hovering around middle age. So around 30 plus or minus. So I think the majority of people are in their 30s. I have a few younger, and a few older guys like me, but I think the majority are around 30-ish, from what I glean. Yeah, have a good Easter, everyone. Regardless if you believe in it or not, just have a good weekend. Pooping while standing says, how do you weigh the balance between green and red flags over time? Not closing your mouth and discussing it. If you see something, if you feel something, don't just kind of ignore it because you want to. The more you're honest with yourself, the better things will be, I think. Ted1775 says, great discussion tonight. I hope so, even though it'll be a short one because I'm a bit under the weather. Yeah, I'd say the majority of my subs are probably in their 30s. Yeah. Which wouldn't surprise me given like a lot of the more considered, experienced commenters that are under the videos. Get better soon, human. Thank you. Adam Super AC says, the road less traveled, it's the one you choose. Yep. Vitlau says, if you look like a bad boy without trying, isn't it a red flag when someone is interested? Maybe. That's interesting. Like if you go on a date and you're really not interested in it, it's not like you're trying to act like a bad boy, but you don't really care. It's kind of like you had no interest going, but someone forced you to go on a date and they're interested, and you're really not engaged, and you almost feel embarrassed how little you care, but they really like you. Yeah, I'd say pay attention to that. What is she like when you're giving nothing? Because if you act the opposite, what if you all of a sudden start being expressive and telling her your inner world and things like that? Then she becomes disinterested. That's a red flag. So all of those things, see, all of these questions are great to ask because you're being engaged. Firstly in yourself, and secondly, if you decide to sort of go on a date or be around people. The Real says, what do you do when you find a good person? Well, you'd hope you want to keep them around. And as long as they're a good person to you, be a good person to them. I mean, why would you let someone good get away, or why would you push away someone good? That was going to be another working title for this stream. Do you push people away? I.e., because of the videos I made, you know, when all you see are red flags, you're pushing everyone away. So you could be going on dates with potentially compatible people, but you'll push them away because they'll sense where you're operating from. I've been on dates where, because I'm interested in this stuff, I felt a lot of girl power vibes coming off these chicks on dates. And when I started talking to them, I asked them like little questions, and I read between the lines. They were very modern and independent, and they didn't want to be owned, or you know, they weren't traditional. But you can definitely get the vibe off a person by the way they present themselves, how they talk, how defensive they are compared to how open they are. And I remember two of them. It was confirmed afterwards when I was gonna. There was a few cases where they weren't for me, but they were very, very independent, modern chicks. Whereas I like a woman who's more traditional. Not that she needs to want to have kids or anything like that, but that she's just more feminine rather than the career woman that just wants a boyfriend object. And I remember on two of the occasions, at the end of the day, I remember saying, "Oh, where's your car? I'll walk you to your car." And I remember two of them actually saying, "I don't need a man to walk me to my car." And I was like, "Okay, all right, see you later, bye." And then there's the obligatory text, "Nice meeting you, but I don't think we're a match for each other." And most of the time the reply back was, "Yes, I agree." Oh, well. You can't ignore that stuff. Like, had I been a guy that sort of said, "Yeah, but I really like her. She's kind of quirky and exciting, and I really find her hot and attractive." No, because I'd been out with girls before where that had annoyed me and really made life hell with them. And I can't just talk about this stuff and be so passionate and believe in it so much that when it's in front of me, I feel like a hypocrite if I don't act upon it. So when I see that in a woman, when I see that red flag, it's like, no, thank you. And that's fine. But then if you don't see any red flags on a date, say for instance, these chicks that had the obvious girl power red flags, right? What if there's no red flags? If you go there neutral, then you actually start noticing when she's kind or thoughtful or considerate of you, or, you know, giving you a napkin, or, I don't know, asking about your life, or sympathetic towards something you talk about. "Oh, yeah, my relative, they passed away last year," or whatever it might be. And you could kind of see genuine sympathy, or they're asking about your life, or things like that. You won't be able to recognize it because that's neutral to you if all you're doing is looking for red flags. So these are the videos that, this is what I was describing in the videos. If you condition yourself over just being aware of red flags, I think some guys can become no better than the girl power chicks, because all they do is have a negative magnifying glass over all men, looking for the faults. And as soon as a guy exhibits like something that's negative, and it might not be like a bad trait, but a human trait, like, oh, he might get annoyed or something, it's like, oh, red flag. It's a typical guy. I think a lot of guys they're starting to do that because they've learnt off women. It's like the only way, this is the unfortunate thing, decades and decades of these kind of women out there, men have learned to deal with them, and this is the vocabulary and the standards they've made to deal with these women out there. So there are very few non-girl power chicks out there. So unfortunately, the main template is bring out that red magnifying glass all the time, and as soon as something looks red, it's like, nah, you're out. So the title of this video that I settled on, do you know what a good person looks like? Do you know what you want? Then do you know what you want in someone else? When you know what you want, what you don't want, but what you do want, you've gone from what you don't want to what you do want, then it becomes very easy. You notice it, I said in my last video, it becomes very, it's really liberating when you start to notice it, when you've really reflected on what you do want now and what you don't want to do anymore. You don't want to date the same way you did. It's really liberating and refreshing when you go on dates. And then all of a sudden, you start to sort of see between the lines, like, yeah, I don't like that. And I know why. I know why. You can answer the why of how you're feeling. You can answer the why of why it's a red flag. You can answer the why of why I like them, why it's a green flag. And then even better if it's a virtue, something really noble, like empathy or kindness, something very, very rare. And again, I acknowledge it's very rare. They're finding a good woman, and I've dated. Look, finding a good woman is not the norm. The majority of women out there aren't great. But I'd say good women out there aren't like 1%. Because I've dated a lot of good women, but just not compatible for me. So don't confuse incompatibility as well. So there's the two-step hard task of, there's a lot more lazy, girl power minded chicks out there who just kind of use men and they feel entitled to a lot. I know that the majority of women out there, they believe in that script, especially when they're dating. There's a small percentage, and it's like, I don't know, 20% maybe. I'm guessing might be okay, nice people, but then they're not compatible with you. Like, the nice, compatible people are really like unicorns. They are, but they're not unicorns to the degree that they're mythical and they don't exist. To me, that they're like 1% of people out there. They're very hard to find. 99% of people out there are awful or incompatible. And it's easy to get disheartened because I've had good relationships with incompatible people, and it would be easy for me to say, no, they were complete wretches, and make myself believe a binary point of view where all women are awful. It's like, no, I know myself. I wouldn't have even committed to them if there wasn't something at the start that I saw that was worthwhile. And yes, some of them did put on a mask and lie. But then some of them, they didn't lie. I was just enamored at the start. And so it begs the question, how much of it was me willing to see a mask I wanted to see because I really liked them at the start? And then how much of it was them wearing a mask? Now, as I got older, I can honestly say that it was less me wanting to believe it because I became more and more talkative, expressive. I forced women to express who they were. So as I got older, it was more the case that they wore the mask and they were agreeable because they wanted to be with me for whatever reason they had. When I was younger, yeah, I did what probably a lot of guys did. I believed the mask. I didn't want to ask questions. I didn't want to look at red flags. I certainly only looked, I manufactured green flags that probably weren't even there. Oh, she could be like this. I'll give her time. She's just shy. Oh, yeah, she went through this when she was young. I have to understand this. I have to understand that. Ted1775 says, how is the surgery coming along? I have to go for a checkup next week to determine what the next stage is. But for now, it's like I've still got the plate in, and yeah, just letting the bone heal. No coffee for me today. No, just tea. I don't want to dehydrate myself. I'm trying to keep my fluids up. a VG fan forever. Hi, human. I just wanted to say I've been in the manosphere a long time and listened to many speakers, and I'm very happy that someone as compassionate and articulate as you has decided to come along. Thank you. I got tired of look, I can see all sides, but as life goes on, I become very aware of Groundhog Day, like, you know, everyone talking like a parrot. And it's especially obvious to me when you talk to someone and they tell you about what happened to them, a breakup. It's how people speak about it. When people start speaking about their exes and their relationships with catchphrases from the manosphere, then it's kind of, that's a red flag to me. It's kind of like, you know, they'll say, oh, we're with, I can't even use the lingo because it will get flagged here. But you know what I mean, the pop phrases that litter the manosphere, rather than actually speaking from your own experience and using normal language. So it's a good sign when I hear guys speak in normal jargon and not using and it's the same with psychology. When you hear people talking about narcissists and things like that, you could tell they're really widely read, and they'll be like, oh, and BPD and narcissism and borderline and this and blah, 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 and stage 2, blah, whatever it is, right? And it's like, you're talking in the ballpark of like those kind of meme words. Whereas I find it a healthier individual who can just use normal language to describe their experience, and particularly what they've learned from it. Don't tell me what you've learned from jargon and lingo in that little bubble. Tell me what you've learned, you know, as you, Joe or Fred. Don't you love the mute button? Nicholas says a human brain needs 25 years to be fully developed, allegedly. Yeah. Sognite says a green flag is when she shows signs of introspection whenever she talks about her past experiences, whether it's relationship, work, or family related. Not in a self-absorbed manner, but in a manner where she talks about her own mistakes and what she's learned without the victim mentality, and just talk about how bad she was treated. Yeah. That's rare. Like, a lot of women won't even admit when they're wrong. Women don't like saying sorry. Women don't really feel guilt very much. It's they don't like shame, so it's hard for a woman to be this honest and humbly self-reflective. But yeah, that's a green flag. If someone can actually talk about their past reflectively and in a really balanced and humble way, that's a green flag. And again, I'm not saying you hear someone talk that like that on a date. That's kind of like, wow, she's the one, marry me. I'm saying that's a great green flag. Look for a litany of green flags that are compatible with you as you get to know them, maybe date them over months and months and months before you decide to go further. Chris says women want a dancing monkey nowadays. Paul, human, have you ever read John Ray's book Mars and Venus? Yeah, a friend of mine's recommended it to me. That's an old book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It was written in the 60s or 70s, I think. Boffin says you need chicken soup. Feral Android says you don't really know a woman until you put a ring on her finger. Are you going to take that chance? Well, for the guys who want to do that, all I can recommend is to be realistic, know yourself, and spend a lot of time, and I'm talking years, before you even consider that. Because I've mentioned in videos, what are you going to say to the guy who really wants to be married and have a family? to be miserable his whole life. Or if nothing's going to stop him doing that, I would rather a guy do it as sensibly, take his time, and as rationally as possible to give himself the best chance. Yeah, it could go wrong. But also, as I mentioned in the last video, with stats, be very weary of taking them on face value. Because you look at how men and women date in the last couple of generations. They date very frivolously. Marriage has become very blasé. People go in and out. They're married 3 or 4 times. And so they don't really care. They just kind of marry someone they're attracted to on the surface. They rush into things. So the stats of marriage today, you've got to look at how people get married. Do they take the time I'm talking about? Do they introspect? Because most of the marriages and divorces are, I'd say, by incompatible people who don't self-reflect. So you can't just sort of say, well, the numbers say this. It's like, what kind of people are doing it? I know what I was like when I was younger. All I cared was about physical appearance, and I excused everything else and I kept my mouth shut. And now, when there's no taboo of like jumping on Tinder or, you know, getting married a few times, no big deal. It happens all the time. You need to actually take those stats with a grain of salt too. They are something to pay attention to. And again, I can see the knee-jerk reaction of a lot of guys. Humans saying we should get married. Like, I'm not. I'm saying know your own standards. So whatever you're hell-bent on doing, to do it as patiently and with your eyes open as much as possible. Like, I know myself, if there's something I want to do, I'll be weary, I'll be careful, but if there's a good chance of success depending on how I behave, then I'll go for it. Hence why I'm kind of departed years ago of that very black and white thinking of you know, women are all to blame and men are perfect and all that stuff. It's not true. It can't be true. Men are unfairly treated in society. I can have a rational discussion about the unfairness, yeah. But that sort of binary good and evil thing, nah. No, it doesn't. It's not constructive, especially how you want to live. We don't live in a black and white world. Ted1175 says, "Human, it is difficult to trust anyone." It is, but say for instance, like, I love my subscribers, right? Okay, let me rephrase it. I like my subscribers. There's a couple of them I've gotten to know and spoken to over months, and some of them over years. Those are the people I would be more willing to trust if they ever came to Australia to stay at my home. But what am I going to say? Like, well, I can never know anyone, so I will never, ever, as a rule, ever trust them. I will never shake hands with them. I'll never have a beer with them. I'll never have a coffee with them. That's ridiculous. I'm limiting my life experience with people. And when you extend it to women in relationships, you have to be a bit more careful as well, because men and women are so different. And not to get caught in the limerence phase and just go with the biological flow of she's hot and I want her. It's like, no. That's the first step. Check that off the list and then lock it away. Everything else after that is personality, temperament, virtue, values. Do you want the same things out of life? Feral Android says, the biggest green flag for me is a woman who does not require marriage to stay together. I haven't met one yet, but I heard they exist. I've dated 1 or 2 women that said it wasn't important, but then later on it became important. Again, so you can call it, they were either wearing a mask, lying to themselves, or lying to me. It all amounts to the same thing. They weren't being honest with themselves. And so they were lying to themselves and to me. But that's why I've said, like, I'm always straight up right from the outset on dates. Those important things, there's no point going on 2nd, 3rd dates and getting to like each other if a very big deal breaker of either one of us is not addressed. So I'll talk about, in a very fun and casual way, like, yeah, I've never wanted marriage. I've never wanted kids. I never wanted to be a father. That's just who I am. I'll just say it very casually, not in a very forceful kind of, you know, way that would cause her to kind of go, whoa, this guy's a bit extreme. In a very kind of fun first date, like, no, this is me. I never want to have kids. I've never wanted to. That'll never change. So I hope you don't want kids one day because it'll never work. I just want the person. I don't want kids. And I'll keep it very jovial. And you can quickly see if it's their face, it's kind of like, oh, well, I wanted kids. So you have to bring these things up right at the beginning, I'd say, in a very relaxed way, just to give them a picture of who you are, and hopefully they'll do the same. Again, some women don't. They stay agreeable and hope you'll change your mind. But it's up to you. That's why I say to know yourself, and through conversation, time spent, listen and pay attention to contradictions of what she says and how she acts and how she responds. All right, guys. Let's wrap it up if there aren't any further questions. I've always wanted to do a stream that was only an hour. The shortest I've been able to do is an hour and a half. And usually they go for 2 to 2.5 hours. So I was going to say maybe I should get a cold more often, but no. I hate there are some people that actually like having colds. But I don't. I always get migraines and things like that. Kevin R asked a interesting question. He said, if everyone lived forever, do you think they'd stay with only one person? That could be another factor. We're living longer, and so people are taking their time waiting past their reproductive years. So that could be another thing to consider as well. That's not a small thing. That's a good observation. Did I say it in a video? I wanted to make a video, or I think I made a video, that even if we extended women's fertility age like past, mid-30s, say we could make it that she would still be fertile to her 70s, it wouldn't change anything. Women would just sort of wait until their 30s to get serious. So I think the bigger leeway we give human beings just take the easy way out, and we get lazier and lazier. But that's a good point. If we live forever, would we stay with one person? I think some people would optimistically want to think that, well, we've got more years to find the right person because it's really hard to find the right person. So some would say that would be better. So then I've got much more of life to find that person, and then I'd stick with them. But then would you? Because statistically, the older we get, the more failed relationships we have, the more we get used to being on our own, then the harder it is for us to break out of that mold. So you have that working against you. So I would say the longer we live, I'd say the harder it is for us to stay with one person. Again, it's kind of the chances of you finding that perfect person. Like if you've had train wrecks all your life, say for instance, if you're both introspective, like say for instance, like if I met someone like me who was really interested in this stuff, didn't want the same kind of people, was very focused in who they'd let in, and I happened to meet a compatible person like that I found attractive and virtuous and all that stuff. Again, that's super rare. Interesting question though, but I do think that the longer there's a beauty about the naivety of youth when we had the social structure that almost expected men and women to get together and have kids in their early 20s. Because you were old enough to be an adult, but immature enough not to get too stubborn in your ways. You'd learn to grow together and still respect each other as men and women, because society fostered that in both of you. Now it's kind of, they foster independence, and it's very hard for, you know, a 50-year-old independent guy to let much in, let alone a woman who, if she's rode her whole life on her beauty and nothing else, and she hasn't introspected, she's just a 50-year-old woman who's dating like she did in her 20s. It's not a good sign. But all of these questions are very interesting to ask, I'd say, especially for yourself. Then you know going in, when you have these kind of thoughts and you let this conversation out with the other person, if they find them, if they don't like you speaking this way, then that's a good sign that they're not meant for you. Because if I like speaking openly like this, I don't want to hide this from the person that I potentially be with. So I always say, be yourself, be expressive, learn how to speak, express your thoughts civilly, politely, and the right kind of people should come into your circle, platonic or romantic. You don't have to modify your language to get the girl. You don't. The girl that's compatible with you will like your language, will like how you think, will like who you are, and even if they're not a mirror image of you, they can understand you. It's good tea, by the way. Any final questions? Just the guy says, I'm sick too. I think it's some kind of virus. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm going to relax today, and tomorrow's public holiday. Hopefully I'll be okay for work on Tuesday. But yeah, I'll see you during the week, hopefully for another video. Hopefully I'll get a bit better. All right, guys, have a good one. Keep your boundaries, keep thinking, keep expressing, and yeah, good conversations, all right? None of this mudslinging. Sognite says, he's giving me some advice. Boil some fresh ginger, cut it into little pieces, into water, then squeeze a lemon and add honey to it. It'll help with congestion and sting at the end of your throat. Yep. Well, I don't want to go anywhere. But I've got a whole plethora of stuff, from throat lozenges to Codral to a whole bunch of medicinal stuff. So I'm pounding all of it as much as I can, drinking a lot of fluids, teas, and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, guys, this was a nice quick one, just over an hour. And I'll catch you next time. Have a good weekend. Bye.